Hey, sorry about that, guys. My computer kind of cut out there for a second there as I was talking about bools. So this is kind of, I guess, part two of the type screencast. But yeah, so left out talking about bools, and those are the true and false values there. So you can kind of check those out and play around with those to toggle different things there. So next thing, two more things I want to cover with you. We got this idea of type inference. Okay, so this is something that it's kind of a just if you want to use this or not. It's basically Swift has the ability where Swift will infer the value you create. Okay, so in all these examples up top here, we said specifically we casted it with an int. So when I say cast, we put a colon here, the type right after it for the the different value. Okay, so if we want to use type inference, we can do this essentially without putting this information here, like the int, the double, the string, and bool, and Swift's going to figure it out because it's pretty smart. Okay, so if I were just to go var new number and set that equal to 300, all right, it's still going to work. And you're going to see it's still going to compile as 300. And then Swift's going to infer that new number is an int. All right, so as I start typing it out, you can see it's got new number, and Swift has gone ahead and said, okay, we know that's an int because of just what you put there. All right, so again, if I were to say var my name, and then go ahead and give a string of my last name, Snyder, same thing's going to happen. All right, it's going to know, so again, when I start calling my name, that my name's a string based on what I put to the right of the equal sign, of what I assigned to it. All right, so with type inference, again, it's kind of up to you. It might not be a bad thing at the start just to kind of always go ahead and cast everything with the specific type. All right, but as you start getting more comfortable and familiar with it, you can see it's just kind of one less thing to type on in your code there, and Swift will go ahead and infer all that. Okay, so again, it's type inference. It's basically everything you did up here minus casting it with the specific, specifically saying what the type is. Okay, so last but not least here, I want to talk about string interpolation. Okay, and this is an important thing that we're going to use throughout the semester. Basically, it allows you to use different variables and strings and values in many different capacities. Okay, so it's kind of just best to just show you an example of this here. And let's go ahead and do that. So I want you guys to create a variable called var school name and set that equal to lakes. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create a var school year. We'll set that equal to 2017 since that's a current year. Okay, so now in our code, let's say we wanted to have an output of code that's going to say, I go to lakes in 2017. So obviously we could do something like, var new string. We could type that all out. I go to lakes in the year 2017. So now we could do that in our code and everything would compile and be fine, but the only problem is if we were to use this a couple times or we were going to be using this in our code in different lines, if one thing goes wrong, you got to go back and change every single line of code where this is at. So that can become a kind of a pain when you've got some pretty large blocks of code that you're working with, and we will in this class. So string interpolation allows you to use variables in something like this, like a string, so that way you can control the information that's going into these sentences. So rather than kind of hard coding this and typing this all out by hand, I want to use these variables in my code so that way if things change, so for example if I'm here next year and it's 2018, I don't want to have to go back and find this line of code. I just can go to the top of my screen and find the variable and change that. So let's show you how string interpolation works. So let's go ahead and delete out lakes and then 2017. Okay, so if I want to use these variables from up top here, we use this concept or this technique called string interpolation. So if I go backslash parenthesis and then pull the school name variable in there, okay, you're going to see I go to, and then if you look in your output, lakes. Okay, so let's go ahead and then do the same thing with year. All right, so I'm going to delete year. I'm going to go backslash parenthesis and type in school year variable. All right, and you can see I now get the same output. I go to lakes in 2017. So now again, I'm a little more fluid with my code, but again, let's say something changes. Okay, so now let's say we've advanced forward a year. It's now 2018. I come up to my variable and change 2018. You'll see the output out here changes to 2018 as well. All right, so string interpolation is very useful in that regard because it gives you options. All right, again, let's say your school changes. You're going to college. Let's say you're going to University of Illinois. you could type that in here. I go to Illinois in the 2018. Obviously, we'd want to get rid of the. It doesn't make much sense. Get that out of there. But again, so it gives you some, some control of just, again, just having more, readable code, and also just it takes away some of that hard coding where more errors could come up. So again, if I were to have, let's say I was going to use school name and school year 7 different times in my code, if I were to change this to 2019, rather than going through my code and finding every instance of that and changing it over and over, I just have to find the variable and change that, and then it changes all the instances of that. Okay, so string interpolation, pretty useful in that regard. Okay, and then one last thing, and also the nice thing about string interpolation too is it allows me to use a string and an int in the same sentence here. Okay, because if I were to just try to do this here, our next string. All right, so let's type that out here. So if I were to just go, I go to school in 90. Okay, again, we're gonna start getting some errors right now, and actually we're gonna hold off on that just because I don't want to. We're gonna hold that thought there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end this video at this point here because I think we've got a good, good starting point here. So just to kind of review, we talked about ints, we talked about types, we've got ints, we got strings, bools, and doubles. We talked about type inference. All right, so again, just creating our variables without the specific casting after it. And then we talked about string interpolation, which allows you to just, again, use variables inside of strings. And there's many other reasons that we'll get to throughout this semester, but just kind of showing you that beginning process of it. So go ahead, after you get done with this, go ahead and take a look at the review problem for types and variables and work through those. And then once you get done with that, we're going to keep moving along, which you guys are doing great. Make sure you got questions, you are asking them. But nice job on this screencast here, and we'll talk to you next time here.